And you think from the outside, oh my God, this guy's in the Super Bowl, or they're getting married, or they just had their first baby. At the most important times in people's lives, you'd be surprised how many people are at such
Not
a
good.
downfall. It's just, and nobody checks up on them. And it sucks that I'm a man, and we're not normally the emotional type. Women are very in touch with their feelings. And as a man, you know how many times nobody checked up on me? Like outside of prior to this, like I know so many times as a kid I was suffering inside. So many. So as an adult, I try to change that.
I made it through the rough time. I made it through the tough time. I made it through the bad time. So now I gotta get mine. Gotta weather the storm. Gotta get mine. Gotta weather the storm. I gotta get mine. Gotta weather the storm. Okay. One day we gon' get on. Talk to 'em.
Welcome to Bailey and Buck Unplugged, where we talk about sports, entertainment, and mental health in support of the Kennedy Kids Foundation. If you're struggling with mental health, we encourage you to speak up and get help. A great place to start is 988. That's the free crisis prevention lifeline. Or you can check out the resources tab at kennedykids.org. If you are in an absolute emergency, please dial 911. Either way, we want you to know that you are not alone and that you don't have to struggle, and speak up, get help. There are resources available to you, and we are here to support you. If you're new around here, I want to introduce you to our host. I am Misty Buck. I am an author and a mental health and performance coach. And my co-hosts are Robert Bailey. He is the president of Rosenhaus Sports, the president of Kennedy Kids Foundation. He's a two-time Super Bowl champion, two-time college national champion. He's an NFL record holder, and he's an ESPY winner. And we are also joined by Bailey Brooks Masburn. She is a celebrity wedding and event planner, a former NFL cheerleader, and the executive director of the Kennedy Kids Foundation.
Hey, welcome to today's show. We have a super awesome guest today. We got Marcus Rivero, aka Souls by Sir. He's a neighbor of mine and a fellow Miami native. Super excited to have him on the show today. But I know you guys know his work. If you know My Cause, My Cleats, you know his work. If you watch football, you know his work. If you're into baseball or even like big time sporting events and you know who Shohei Ohtani is and that 40-40 record he got, you know who Marcus is. You have seen his work all over the place. It's truly incredible. I'm so excited to welcome him. Behind all of that work that he does, he is an amazing human being with an incredible story, and I'm super excited to welcome him today. So welcome, Marcus.
Oh my God,
Welcome,
thank you.
Marcus. Thank you for joining us.
You guys are hired like hype women. Like you're good. You're hired.
We are ready. Well, Bailey was a cheerleader for the Dolphins, so there you go.
There it is.
Built-in hype woman, pro level.
She is ready. She's ready. So we always like to kick off our show by asking about a pivotal moment in your life when your mental health was really impacted. So it could be in your career, maybe it was something in your personal life, but what was like a defining moment that you really had to climb back from?
Wow, you guys like jump head first into the deep
Head first.
All right, so I have a couple. There was a couple that have like shook me, that have broken me, that got me to a point of like basically I had to make a decision. I'll start with the furthest one away, which is right when I started. Right, so when I started customizing sneakers, I started in the NFL. There really wasn't any rules against what I was doing, but nobody was really doing it. And I remember I started to gain headway, and by like the second year is when the first bomb dropped in my life, and it was Nike. I got a phone call like at 7 or 8 in the morning one day, and it was a player of mine saying, "Man, I'm so sorry, Mark." And I'm like, "What are you sorry for?" He's like, "Man, the pamphlet." Right after that call, I got like 7 more calls. Ends up being that Nike didn't really like what I was doing. So Nike sent a 3-page pamphlet, which is now framed in my living room. And it basically showed 9 photos, 8 of which were at the time I used to paint in my apartment in the kitchen. It was my kitchen. And it was basically stating, hey, you guys are all Nike athletes. Part of your contractual rights is that you can't basically cover over any of the Nike. You can't alter the Nikes or whatever the case may be. And doing this will void your contract. We will drop you if you continue to do this. Well, the bad news was that they sent that to everybody in the world. Every Nike athlete, every equipment manager, every team, every agent. It was horrible. And I remember that was my first, I was having a meltdown. I remember, and I was in the point of tears. I probably did cry. And my mom, she's like, don't be sad, like be happy, you know, you made a lot of headway, etc. And I was like, and I remember telling her, like, I haven't even gotten like my feet wet. Like I'm just starting and they're collapsing on me. And I remember it was that moment I was on the verge of like, I would call it a breakdown because it was like everything I had worked for 2-3 years, endless nights, endless hours was going to be swiped from underneath me. And the way the world works, the day before I had gotten Twitter, my first official tweet I ever received from somebody was that day, 3 hours later, Adidas football saying, "We saw the pamphlet, we'll be in touch." Yeah, it was like one of those moments that I remember like, oh my God. It was a pivotal moment for me. And it was a moment that it made me realize, like, look, many times in your life, that glass is going to be half empty. Many times it's going to look like it's shattered. Just figure out a way to just move around and see if you can see it from a different perspective, or be thankful that it shattered for X, Y, or Z reasons. That was my first one. That was my first, like, I had to step out of myself and like mentally, like it was rough. I mean, and it broke me. And then the most recent one, which is the one
sorry, Marcus, just because we'll save second story. I just want to dive into the first story first. So how long between the time where Nike sent out the pamphlet to all of Nike clients and the Adidas tweet?
Yeah, I was wondering the same thing.
So when they sent out the pamphlet, everybody got it in the morning. It was in their locker. I don't know how soon Adidas sent that tweet because I wasn't good with Twitter. I just know it was the first thing I opened my phone and I saw the tweet.
But that day or that week?
Oh, no, same day.
Oh, same day. Okay.
When I tell you that this was like a series of maybe 3 to 5 hours, but felt like days.
Of course.
No, it was same day. And the wild part about it, and I figured this out months later because me and the Adidas people came really close. They're like, we were going to send that tweet basically the moment you probably found out about it at 8 a.m. And I remember telling him, well, why didn't you do that? Because I suffered for like 3 hours.
Yeah.
To be honest with you, we didn't know whether to send you a message, whether to call you, whether to email you, whether to tweet. We had everything to get in touch with you. And I was like, you guys realize I went on a roller coaster. And they're like, yeah, but it's so much sweeter now. And I was like, yeah. So I would say it was the same day, 2 to 3 hours. But those 2 to 3 hours, when you're in a storm of crap, it feels like days and weeks. But it was the same day.
Adidas passed on Michael Jordan, and they were literally not going to pass on him when Nike stole him and blew up. So they were like, somebody call Marcus Rivero.
you know, and I'm going to tell you something. And Adidas and we do amazing work together. Yeah. Fast forward to My Calls, My Cleats, which you mentioned in the intro.
Yeah.
Guess who calls me asking to work with me?
Michael Jordan?
Nike.
Oh, what?
Yeah. And it's funny because I remember this was one, and this is already, My Calls, My Cleats started like 5 years ago. So this has got to be post that pamphlet 6 to 8 years, right? So I remember, and at this point it's already been framed in my living room, and I'm like, you know, this is my one shot to just like kind of say something here. So when they reach out to me, they're like, hey, listen, My Calls, My Cleats is about to happen. We're going to go ahead and go live, but we're only going to do shoes in-house for our top 10 NFL guys. We have hundreds, if not over 1,000 guys. Would you mind that we refer you as the first recommendation for people to outsource it to you? And I remember like hesitating. And I was like, let me see how long this can work. And I was like, you know, I appreciate it. I think I will do that, but under one condition. Oh, what is that? So there was like 6 years ago that you guys sent out this pamphlet. Can I send it back to you and have whoever sent it sign it and send it right back to me? Yeah, I know. It was one of the crazier things I did in my life. And dead silence on that phone call. 30 seconds. And I was trying to hold it, but I got nervous. And I was like, I'm just kidding. Thank you so much. I appreciate you.
You should have stuck to it. You should have been
tried.
Like, he who speaks first loses.
I tried. But you know what? Like, it is what it is. And then, but it's funny. It's just the way the world comes back around. And it's like, listen, the roller coaster always starts and it typically always ends. You just got to ride it. And a lot of people will jump off.
Yeah, but you're so good, they cannot deny you. And I freaking love that, because how many times do we get stuck in the nose and the things that we don't think are going to happen? But when you are that good and you're that persistent, eventually they're coming after you.
My thing with that is, like persistency is key. And it's just like, I never took no for an answer. Like it was just a roadblock. So I always knew that I was going to, once the NFL started with the first roadblock where my guys were getting fined, I was like, I told myself.
Oh, that was one of my questions today.
Oh, yeah. So people don't know behind the scenes. There was so many crazy stories, but the way it worked with the NFL, you know, obviously the part of NFLPA for everybody who doesn't know, you got to form rules. Yeah. So you have the NFL as the master, then you have like the teams, and it kind of trickles down, right? So these players have to follow team rules, league rules. Well, back then there was some crazy, stupid rules, for lack of a better word. I mean, and my guys started to get fined. And the first time offense was $5,600. and it doubled. It went from 56 to 10 grand, et cetera. Every time you got fines, you can appeal it, but it was 50-50. And I remember that year one, I had a good amount of fines on my guys. And I thought that was another roadblock. But, you know, when I talk 5,600 with those guys and we hear 5,600, it's like me telling them $10. Like, who cares? And I'm thinking to myself, 5,600 is a lot of money for me. But yeah, and I knew when that happened, I was like, all right, I'm going to encounter a lot of this. You better figure out how you're going to maneuver them, because NFL wasn't going to be the first one. Nike wasn't going to be the last one. And yeah, it's been a fun ride.
Two major powerhouses. Like these are two, like if your career is set and you vision board, I see you vision boarding and you're like, this is where it's going to go. It's going to make it to Nike. Like I can see how that could have been the most crushing 3 to 4 hours ever, because it's like after Nike, like you're not thinking about Adidas and Under Armour. You're like, Nike's like the golden goose, you know, like, so for them to like push that out, which would then in turn scare anybody wearing Adidas and Under Armour, because they'd be like, oh, it's next. You know, it's the trickle effect, not knowing that Adidas was like, no, there's a great idea. Let's partner with this guy instead, you know? And so that's scary.
What's the even crazier part, that I don't know if you've realized that I didn't at the time. So when Nike did this, remember I told you that they sent that pamphlet to everybody? All they did was the exact opposite of what they intended. So all of a sudden, at this point in my career, this was year 2 or 3, I had
everyone knew who he was.
Thank you. I had one guy on every NFL team at this point. I literally had at least one guy. So imagine you walk into work right now, right? And the sweater you have on with the white heart, all of a sudden they send a pamphlet, you can't wear these sweaters anymore. And all of a sudden, everybody in your room is like, oh my God, but I love that sweater. Who knows where to get this sweater? And you jump out and you're like, wait a second, I know where to get it. It's my guy in Miami. Here you go. That day, within the next 8 to 10 hours, doubled my roster. And bigger names. Like at that point, that brought me in at the time, Des Bryant, Marshawn Lynch. That brought me I had big names, but these guys were guys that were untouchable, because Deshaun Jackson was another one. These were guys that basically were like, F the system. So, Nike, you're going to drop me? Well, I'm bigger than Nike will ever be. So drop me. I'll go to Reebok. I'll go to Adidas. I'll be a free agent. I'll do whatever I want. They didn't care about the money. Nike thought it was going to scare them into submission, when really what it did was, no, you helped grow this kid's business.
They didn't learn that from the Jordan Chicago Bulls band color sneakers. Like
same situation. Like it was just like, you thought it was going to work one way. It blew up in your face. You had to circle back and listen. I mean, I get why they were trying to do it. I understand. But what they didn't see was the vision, where it's like, if people are talking about these custom shoes, it's easy to tell they were Nike shoes. And all of a sudden it started and the sneaker culture was starting to blow up. And it was like, now they're talking about your cleats, which cleats aren't a thing that people talk about. It was sneakers. But now cleats, oh my God, did you see this guy score a touchdown wearing these custom Grinch shoes? Yeah. And that's what it led to. So it was again, this was another way. At the time, I wasn't good at this. Now I'm better, where it was just like, all right, mentally look at this, rotate your chair, and like, all right, the glass is half empty, but like if you peek down lower, well, it looks a lot fuller from here. That's what it was. That was my first encounter with figuring it out.
I'm so glad the bounce back happened for you the same day. Like not even just Adidas, but the orders as well, like the new talent, which is amazing. It's just crazy to think how somebody like didn't see the value or spin it the way Adidas spun it. Did Adidas know that morning that Nike was sending that out? Like, did they know? Because they said the comment they made about, we would have called you earlier since 8 o'clock this morning.
So it's funny you asked that. I've asked that question 100 times. They've never given me a clear answer. My honest opinion is I think both companies have people within the other company that assist with those things. So I think they did. And then the thing is, what Adidas was foreshadowing was they were about to encounter. They were smart, because I'm in Miami. This was about a week before Adidas was going to drop a major bomb of taking the University of Miami account away from a longstanding Nike deal that they had. So It was almost like, it worked for both of us. So they were like, listen, we found a Miami guy that's going to help us get out of this problem, because listen, if your school goes from Nike that everybody loves and it's clearly like the top shelf to an Adidas, some people look at that like a downgrade. And Adidas threw a whole bunch of money at UM and UM changed over to Adidas. That hadn't gone public yet. So when this whole thing happens and they're like, we'll be in touch, was really about the pamphlet, but it was more about like, hey, by the way, we need you to help launch, give us a positive spin on what's about to happen, because it's going to come back and it's going to be a storm. And that was kind of how it started. And my first project with Adidas was 25 pairs, and then it was 123 pairs a week later.
Oh, wild. That's amazing.
You have to tell people, because obviously I'm following you, what you're doing. How many pairs, just during my cleats, the hours that you're working and how many pairs you're doing now?
So for that 1 week, right, my calls, my cleats, which is typically the 13th or 14th week of the NFL season, the first week in December, since it started, I've averaged anywhere between 250 to 390, 400 guys for that one weekend across teams.
Pairs of shoes, people.
Pairs. Yeah, that's pairs of shoes. That's
for 1 weekend.
1 week. That's just 1 weekend. That's not including my regular guys. That's just guys that for that, they pick the charity, they want to put it on the shoe and keep it, auction it, whatever it may be. Yeah, that 1 weekend, I have about 20 to 25% of the league in my shoes at the exact same time.
It's like
executive director hat on, right? Oh,
Yeah.
I'm tapping my mind and she's like, mind blowing. Share her cue. So executive director of Kennedy Kids Foundation, how does an athlete pick their charity for the shoe?
Good question. So what happens is sometimes half these guys, they'll go with the team charity. They're like, here's a list of charities we work with. What do you associate with? The other 50%, I say half of those have their own. And then a lot of times, which is why I love it, a lot of smaller name, and not that, not they're any lesser, but, you have the big ones, the Boys and Girls Club, Big Brother, and then you have like the ones that don't get the love that they should. You just basically, realistically, what I would say to do is you reach out to XYZ athlete and be like, hey, I really would love for this to happen. And then a lot of times the charities come in and say, hey, we'll pay for the cost of it. But you'd be surprised how many of those guys say, don't worry about it. I'll pay for it. Just tell me, let's sit down and actually bring them out. But it's something I would highly look into because it's like, it's a fun lotto, which is what I like to tell people. Because if you get your shoes on the right guy and the guy happens to have either a controversial play, game-saving tackle, a touchdown, or it's a 50-50 shot. Like it could be a lineman that maybe doesn't get the love, but you never know what they're going to focus on TV. And I've seen them focus on, of course, obviously the wide receivers, stuff like that. But centers, O-linemen get love. It really depends on how crazy the shoe is and the story behind it.
Yeah.
But it's a way to get love to a lot of like lesser of the, how do I say it? The smaller charities that still haven't caught their stride or people don't know what they're doing as impactful as they may be. It's an amazing way to get their name out there.
And when you're creating the shoes, you're meeting with the players to learn about the charities. Yeah. Is that correct?
Yeah. So what happens is it's one of a couple ways. Either I'm seeing them in person, we're on a Zoom or FaceTime, or we just jump on a call because I really like to pick their brain. And then a lot of times they'll get the people, like, for example, the head of the charity, or they'll bring a kid on. For example, a lot of these guys visit hospitals. It's typical like of athletes, and one person like resonated with them. So a lot of times what I love to do is have that person design it in place of the person. So me, the athlete, and the kid are on the phone. And then like, it's cool. Like there's ways to incorporate them. And a lot of guys would just give it back to the child or put it up for auction. So it's a really cool, like, for example, Derrick Henry a couple years ago, he was a big participator in the Special Olympics. And this was when he was in Tennessee. So he's like, Mark, I'm going to have kids design it. And he picked his 4 favorites. So I divided his shoe into 4 panels, like the outside, the inside, the outside, and the inside. And I literally mimicked their artwork. So they all had it. So basically it looked like the child did it on the shoes, obviously, but it was my work that would stay on there. But I made it look like the kids did it. Or I'll have the kids write in their own writing something, a message, I love you, whatever it may be. And then I'll literally mimic everything. So it looks like somebody else did it. But yeah, it's an amazing thing the NFL did. And it's opened so many doors for me. I mean, listen, I was in the commissioner's office a couple weeks ago, and it was just like it was one of those things that it was just like, it was really special. And all this came to be because of not taking no from the beginning.
Is it just NFL?
For what?
Like, do you do NBA? Do you do MLB? Do you do soccer?
Oh yeah, I do. So
it's all.
Yeah, he's done a custom basketball for the UM's women's basketball team.
I got caught up in all the shoes. Like I was shoes. Yeah.
It started with NFL. Then the wives got jealous. So then I started doing players' wives. Then the kids needed stuff to match dad. So I started doing the kids. Then it was like, hey, I have a Louis Vuitton purse. Can you do that? Then it started with those things. Then it was like, hey, I got these pair of lubes that I want to change the color. Then it went to that. And then next thing you know, it gradually went to other sports. It went to MLB next. Then it went to corporations. They were like, hey, listen, I want to give 150 pairs to my top level execs. I need 150 pairs of branding. Then all sports. Basketball jumped in.
Wild.
Floyd Mayweather versus Conor McGregor, the boxing fight. That was a crazy story. I ended up doing Conor's shoes. So
I didn't know that one.
Oh, that story was that. You want to talk about? I almost had a breakdown on that one. That was crazy. Yeah, the idea changed 48 hours before delivery date, and I couldn't make. There was no way to do it with shipping. So they're like, "We bought you a flight. You're on a plane in 3 hours. Figure it out." Literally, how that.
Oh my god.
Yeah. It's fun. I love what I do though, but the people.
So how are you managing your mental health during all of this? Because you're working insane hours. You're not just paid, you're taking the meetings, your last minute changes.
You're the designer.
And this is not his only business, by the way. So how do you manage this?
It's hard. That's the one thing that I always tell people, like, I didn't go to school to be an artist. I don't even consider myself an artist. I just paint. But the thing that I'm trying to be is just a better manager of my time. And like mental health is the hardest thing because I don't know how to disconnect. So like I go home and I've always been an entrepreneur. So it's like I always tell people, like, working for somebody or people working for you, it's two different mentalities, right? And when you work for somebody, you check out at 5 o'clock or 8 p.m., whatever it may be, you go home and you can do whatever you want. There's zero worries for the most part. As an entrepreneur, you're always thinking, how am I going to do payroll? How am I going to take care of this? I got this contract coming up. I got to deal with this. I have this deadline. If this employee doesn't show up, I got to step up. So my biggest thing is that, like, I'm trying to find ways to disconnect, which is very hard. I've gotten better. I will tell you that I've gotten better, but it's still not perfect. And I've told myself it's going to be a battle for the rest of my life. But mental health wise, it's just one of those things that literally, I love what I do. This isn't work to me, which is a problem because it doesn't let me disconnect from it. I love it. But like, I just try and, like, now what I've been good at is I felt like I was getting overweight. So I started running, or walking is what I started doing. And then I thought I was an idiot.
Excellent mental health activity. So I just need to point that out to our listeners that walking is a recommended activity to positive mental health. Okay, keep going.
Yeah, I mean, listen, and the crazy part about it, so I put in my ear pods or whatever. And what I realized, which took me like 6 weeks, I'd put my ear pods on, take off from my house on a 2, 3, or 5 mile walk, run, never listen to anything. And I thought it took me like 3 weeks. Like, somebody was like, hey, what do you listen to on your runs? And I was just like, I don't know. They're like,
just put the ear pods in.
I put them in and it kind of silences out. It gives me white noise. I don't hear anything.
Yeah.
And the way I choose to do my walk run is purposely on major streets so that I get embarrassed of, like, not hustling. So like, I don't hear anything. Yeah, I mentally screw myself all the time.
Yeah, whatever works.
I don't do it. I used to, like, run around my block, but then it was so easy to quit. So I was like, all right, so what I need to do is walk as far as I can away, because no matter how far I walk, I got to come back. And I purposely do it like on major roads so that if I feel like, man, you're really slacking today, like there's cars looking at you, be a bum, move it. So one of my biggest things is just white out all the noise, walk, run. And I'm so worried about, like, man, I'm tired. Oh my God, you're almost there, that I stop thinking about work and I stop thinking about life. And then the other one that I've done is actually, because I don't sleep a lot. That's the other issue. I sleep 3 to 5 hours on average.
Ooh, that's so bad for your body.
So bad. It's one of those things. And it's like, listen, I've tried everything, but like, I realize the days that I do sleep longer hours, I'm not as productive. So I'm like, okay, so like I maximize. So what I do is on those nights I can't sleep and it's 11, 12 o'clock, I go in my sauna in my house and I'll just 30 minutes again, no sounds, no nothing. And I feel like for me mentally, what I have to do is I have to put myself in a situation that forces me to focus, or like something that's hard on me, whether it's running or sitting in a sauna because it gets hot. And it just allows me to just disconnect from everything else and just worry about what I got going on right now. It's like, all right, make it through these 30 minutes, make it through these 20 minutes. And that's what I've been doing. And it's helped drastically. My weight has dropped. I feel better. And for that part of my day, it allows me to just like, all right, shut off all because I feel like I have 72 tabs open.
That's a great explanation.
You want to know what it's like to be a creative, an entrepreneur, and somebody that like struggles with mental health situations? Is like open up your computer, put 72 tabs, and be able to know what every tab is, because I do, but it's like you can't shut them off.
No, and you can't get to all of them at the same time.
Oh, and then they're all important. It's not like
they're all due. Yeah.
They're like, bro, these are important. You got to bang these out. And it's just like you have to be really good at time management. These are things that I still haven't perfected, but I'm cool with not perfecting. I used to always say, oh, you got to be perfect at it. No, you don't. Just be better than yesterday. Just get 1% better and kind of like focus step by step. And
so talk to us about that for a second as a creative, because I have this with writing. So writing's like my thing. And I freaking am constantly like, oh my God, I need to write about this. And that inspo hits, right? So you're like, I don't want to lose this, because if I know if I don't write it down and I lose that like emotional connection, that lightning bolt, it's like starts to fade, right? I'll be like, oh yeah, I'll remember that later. And then I don't. And then I'm so mad. So like, how do you like talk about how you manage that? Like, does that add another layer to this for you because you're thinking about design ideas or things like that?
So it's funny you say that, because I get those all the time. Inspiration to me happens at all times, right? But to me, I guess I made the gift and the curse. This is where, going back, one of my taglines is one of one. So I'll never do something twice. I do it once, I'm never doing it again. Like every shoe I do is unique for whatever detail. So what happens to me is I don't forget. But now I have tab 73, tab 74, tab 75.
You add the tabs.
That's right. I just add them. And then
Just adding the tabs.
yeah, and it's crazy, like you say, because you get inspo. I could be out drinking with my buddies, or I could be in the sauna, or I could just look and see a bird and like, oh my God, that's such a cool way of mixed colors. I'm gonna do that on somebody's shoe.
Yeah.
And it just hits. So knock on wood, I've never really had like a block yet. We're on like 15 years and probably 30,000 pairs. And I've never been like, oh my gosh, I don't know what I'm gonna do. But it's just, in my head, I just remember it. Like, okay, remember this moment, Mark. Remember you were outside at 7 a.m. There was a red cardinal. Remember what you're thinking.
Mm-hmm.
And then in the next couple of days, I'll do that idea. So luckily, I don't have to write it down or like put an agenda or send myself a voice note. But then again, you asked me what I had for lunch yesterday. No clue. Can't remember.
So Misty, remember what we were talking about with my personal coaching session? So I think you know, Misty's a life coach, so she works with me directly, and she I tried to explain to her kind of what was going on for me, because I'm that entrepreneur that does everything like all the time, but I've never equated it to the having 75 different tabs open. And when you said that, it was like like you hit the nail on the head. I was like, yeah, I have 5 tabs open. They're all due. And I'm just trying to knock one at a time. And so what I've started doing, because it's the time management, right? I keep making these to-do lists. And so Misty, I didn't update you on how I figure out how to work through some of this, but I keep making to-do lists on paper and writing out what I have to do. And then I will go scratch through everything I did, but I never put in my calendar the time to do the actual item. So what I've started doing was making a calendar appointment for myself to work on a specific item. And I gave myself an hour. And in the last, well, except for the flu had me on the ass Saturday, Sunday and whatnot. But last week was probably one of my most productive weeks. And I feel like I'm just like, okay, I'm going to get to it when I can get to it, because I'm doing the best that I can. Do better today than you were tomorrow. But putting them on my calendar, like make sure you respond to Misty's email 30 minutes. Make sure you respond to Nicole's email to-do list, like based on what's in her email, an hour. Make sure you write this contract for this client, 1 hour. I started taking the time up, because what I was doing was I was taking everyone else's appointments, and every time I left a meeting with more to-dos. And then I couldn't get to those to-dos because I didn't do last week's to-do or last month's to-dos. And it just keeps stockpiling. Like if you see my desk right now over to the side, it is horrendous. But now that I've been categorizing stuff for particular businesses and saying, okay, 10 o'clock, you're working on this. I get to my desk, I'm only working on that at 10 o'clock. And it's been like so much better. It's only been a week though, but yeah.
That's awesome.
Listen, I tried doing what you said. I tried literally doing to-do list on my notes on my phone. And what happened to me was I'd write the list, I'd get to that, and then I realized, oh my gosh, I forgot to add these 17 things. I would never get back to it. So I was like, you know what? Like with me personally, I didn't waste my time in writing the list. And I was just like, all right, Mark, you're gonna remember the 72 tabs anyways. Just hit it when you hit it. And it's hard.
So funny. Everyone organizes differently. So I have to handwrite my to-do list because I need to make that. I told you I'm a writer, right? So I need that mental connection of actually writing the task down, and then I need to be able to cross it out. But what I'll do is I'll start my day with a fresh to-do list every day, and then I number them by priority, and then that's how I. Sometimes I'm going like this back and forth, but I try to like number them by priority. So it's like everyone finds their way, right? And I think that's what's important here is finding your way. Like, don't stop until you figure out what's going to work for you.
Yeah.
No, and you heard Misty's way, you heard my way, you heard Marcus's way. So it's like
all different.
We all have 3 different ways that are like working for us to some level extent.
Yeah,
We still have 75 tabs open, but we're okay.
And it's funny that you say that because Misty, like I tried what you said. I used to number them, but then what I would do, being an idiot, I'd forget something. And so if I had 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, all of a sudden I was like, no, this is point 9. Oh, this is 0.08, 0.07. Before you know it, number 1 was 12. And I was like, I can't do this.
Wow, that's funny.
Sometimes I erase my numbers and I start over when I forget stuff. So I did everything by pencil because I'm always erasing and effing up. So
the amount of times the time that we invest in just the to-do list alone, people, are you watching this? Yes.
Yeah.
That's why I cut it out of my life, because I was like, I'm wasting so much time writing
the list. Yeah.
But if it works, listen, and I didn't land on mine, and I'm sure you two didn't land on yours. I wasn't the first one we landed on. Like it took us a journey to get here. And I'm sure a year from now, you ask me the same thing, and oh no, I don't do tabs anymore. I do this instead.
Yeah,
Yeah, it's
exactly.
just-
Well, because we're
it's a
always
process.
evolving. So there was another story. We did not get to it, but I want to hear your other, if you're
Yes.
still open to sharing it,
Yeah.
your other mental health journey, because there are people who are listening to this who are going through their own struggles, and really our goal is just to sort of humanize everybody's experience and have someone go, oh, me too. So
This is the mental health Me Too movement.
yeah, the
This
mental
one,
health
yeah.
me too.
And this one, I didn't realize how many people suffer from this one. And this one broke me to my core. Like, it still shatters me. I'll never be the same human. So August 18th of 2022, my dad passed away unexpectedly. I was at work with my mom here having a meeting, and we were just talking, and my dad passed away of a heart attack at his house by himself. And I'll never I appreciate it. And my dad was this individual larger than life, right? He was a tough dad, old school. Like, I played sports my whole life, and if I struck out 3 times, I was getting yelled at for 3 hours. Like, I grew up in that hard, it might not have been the best way, but it worked for me. And it was at the time, a lot of parents were like that. So I lost my dad. He was 59, 2 weeks before his 60th birthday, which was crazy to me. My dad was the biggest hard worker, the biggest entrepreneur I ever knew, where I got a lot of my drive from. So when that hit me, life keeps going, right? Like, for everybody else, which sucks, because it's like you feel like your world just shattered. And my dad had this crazy ability to, whether, I'll give you an example of it. We were on a vacation, or we'd always go on vacation. We'd jump on a cab, right? Or an Uber. By the time that Uber, cab, whatever, picked us up at the airport, we got to the hotel, my dad knew the driver's life story, his phone number, what he does, like, and vice versa. Like, this was my dad made people feel so comfortable, and it was a crazy gift. I've never seen anybody do this. His funeral, I mean, he had over 400 or 500 people there. And my dad was no celebrity, no social media, none of that. But it was just people that throughout the course of his life and my life, your dad changed my life. I had that conversation so many times, right?
Wow.
So I made a mistake the next day. So I had to do the part of the job, because I have other companies, right? And it was always a 3-leg team, me, mom, dad. We were always 33 partners. Like, it was just, we all had a third. So I had to pick up my dad's slack, right? And it was in 5 a.m. I was doing a pickup, and I'm with my employees. And I was like, one of those things you mentioned earlier, like, writing down something. So I took a picture of this guy facing east, and on Instagram, because they're like on the stories, because my thing was to write on top of it and save it so I can have it as inspiration for myself. Well, I effed that one up. I wrote this super personal note to my dad, and I published it by accident. It was 5 a.m. I go get busy with work. 8 a.m, I grab my phone again, and I'm flooded with DMs, like flooded. A lot of my followers, some of them are friends, some of them are family, but the majority of my followers are strangers. I've never seen them, never met with them, never had 2 words with them. When I tell you that I saw that, and it still gives me like chills, broke me. I was broken losing my father. I have my mom, but I was broken. Still am. And I wrote this super personal, like, Dad, I need help. Like, I don't know how to do that. And it was just this crazy story. The DMs that came through of people, like what you're saying, relatable. Most of the first ones I got weren't friends, weren't family. They were people who had either lost a mom, a dad, a child, a brother, or people that were in a complete fight and hadn't spoken to their mother or their father for months. And what I realized was, I wrote back to every single person, still do, myself. I'm the only one that has my Instagram. And I was having these hour-long conversations with complete strangers. And here I am, like, consoling them on the exact same thing I'm going through. Like, many of them just love, many of them, all ages, 18-year-olds, 70-year-olds. And what I realized was, okay, like, this was super personal and it got put out there. The next day I did it again. Like, but I told myself that you're not going to put it out there, but I purposely put it out there. I did that for like 150 days straight.
Wow. The same note?
Different notes. Every day was a new note. It was a new struggle.
150 days straight.
Yeah, and I kept that, and they're all on my profile. If you go to my top of my profile highlights, and it put me as vulnerable, I think, that I've ever been in my life. Yeah, and I'm not the guy to cry. I'm not the guy to have emotions. Like, the only emotions I had was on a football or baseball field, anger or happiness. It was never sadness, broken, mentally unstable at a moment. I was a rock. And so I did that. And what I realized was, like, it allowed me to feel is probably what I would say. And then I was able to help so many people. But what nobody ever understood was, I think they helped me more than I could ever help them. because I was having conversations with people who struggled, and you'd be surprised how many people struggle behind the scenes. And that was my biggest thing. Like I was that person, I still am, but now I'm open with it and I faced it. And so many people, like whether it be a passing, we've all experienced death of some sort, and it affects you in so many different ways. And grief is a son of a gun, to call it nicely. It hits you at the happiest moment. Like you could have a child be born the next day after you lose somebody, and the happiest day, what should be the happiest day of your life, something reminds you of your dad or your mom or your brother or your sister or your best friend, and it just it swipes the rug from underneath your feet. And that's what I experienced. And I had thousands of conversations, and so many people have like thanked me for it. And I'm like, I can't accept your thing. Like it's me, thank you, because I could have never made it through. And listen, and I tell people all the time, and I was on there, if I didn't have a mom that was still around that I had to like face and I had to like be there for, like I don't know if I'm having a conversation right now. Like I don't know if I'm still around. And people always see the Instagram, Instagram is great, social media is great, but it's also really, really, really bad. And people paint a picture. Like I tell people, the easiest example is like the shoes behind me. Yeah, they look beautiful. I could take an amazing photo, put them on Instagram. But if you knew all the blood, sweat, and tears that goes into those things, you only see a facade. You never see the work, the endless hours, the having to leave a trip early. I'm sick, but I still got to do this. You don't see that. You just see the final photo. And I tell people like, man, it's Instagram for that reason helped me so much, because I had, again, thousands of conversations with people. And again, they were like, they just wanted somebody to talk to relate with, like, oh my God, I experienced like this hit me. Like you talked about this experience. I remember doing this with my mom. And yeah, I did that for almost a year, and it's still on there. And I leave it public because sometimes I go to them and I have to read them because I break down multiple times every week.
So
this is amazing, because really quick, Bailey, just because you're building this community of vulnerability, and that's sort of what has been popping in my mind as you are saying this. And that's really what building community is, and this vulnerability, because the whole beginning of the show, you were talking about the adversity, but then all these successes that you've had and how you've managed all these things. But just like you just said, behind the success, behind the Instagram, there are things that every single person is going through. And I just want to say too, that I appreciate that from you, and that it sounds like you are walking in your dad's footsteps by changing other people's lives. And so I just want to say thank you for creating that community.
Thank you. And that's what kept me going, because it was like, I kept telling myself, this is what my dad would have done. Like he was never social media, but like, this is how my dad affected people. And I'm like, all right, this is my way of like repaying having an amazing dad. This is my way of like, oh damn, I gotta breathe. I can't do this.
It's okay.
It's all good. Take a minute.
This is my way of like giving back, like what I had. Like, again, my dad was not what I call a soft person. Like he was very like, my mom was the soft one. My dad was the tough one, but he was tough with me. So the world got to see the softness of it. And I appreciate that, because I'd rather be that way than everybody think my dad was an asshole. And I got to see the soft, like, no, I'll take the hit. And doing this and the conversation I've had because of it, I was like, this is what my dad must have felt for all the years that he did this. I didn't do it I don't do it for me. It was just like, I'm doing it for other people. But in turn, you understand how much you get when you pour into something, like how much you get out of it without even wanting it. And yeah, and it's just like, and so many times, like the ones that make me so happy are the ones that like the parents are still alive, right? But I was fighting with my mom, like we haven't spoken in 6 months. And like I'll somehow hear them out and kind of give them like a different perspective, like maybe go talk to her or just give her a hug, whatever the case is. And the best ones are the ones that write back to me like a day, a week, a month later. Oh my God, like I'm on vacation now with my mom. We're having such an amazing time. And I'm just like, those get me, because it's just like, even if one person did something and it changed what could have been, and God forbid their mom passes away, they're never going to regret doing that. Like you're going to regret the times you didn't get to do those things. So when these people write back to me, I'm like, oh, that's like, this is my dad. This is my dad continuing whatever he did for his whole life through me.
Wild. It like my heart is bleeding, because like in 2006, 8, I lost my dad to a murder incident. Basically, he was dating this girl who didn't reveal she had a man, and they showed up at his house and got into a fight and fell down the stairs, hit his head, and then like 6 weeks later he'd been in a coma, and I had to pull the plug. But the crazy part for me was always that he had called me that Friday, and this happened Sunday, and I was like, Dad, I'm super busy, can I call you back? And I never got to call him back. So that, like, no, now you're getting me So anytime I say that sentence, like that's the sentence that's my trigger, like it's the sentence that like gets me because I never actually got to resolve things with him. Like you have people reconciling. There was stuff that was underlying that needed to be discussed because I was sexually traumatized by my dad as a child, and it never was a conversation between us as an adult. And then I don't know if you know, I'm sure you looked it up, but like Kennedy Kids Foundation was started because my niece Kennedy died by suicide. Robert's daughter died by suicide September 15th of 2022, which is the same day my son turned 18. So then there's that ripple effect in the families with the kids that knew her. But like Robert, the way you're talking, like if Robert was on this call, he'd been bawling his eyes out right now. Like it's still so fresh. And the reason why I volunteer so hard for the foundation and go so hard on his behalf is because he needs the skills that I have to power the foundation. And I don't think he would still be here if we didn't have one. And so like how you said the same thing. So it's like, okay, people grab your tissues. This is the tearjerker moment of the show.
One thing
But
Thank you for
life.
sharing that.
It's
Yes,
real life.
thank you for sharing that. That's rough.
Thank you for sharing it. And one thing I will tell you that I suffered from it, that you said that my final words with my dad, the way you seem to have at one point or feel like you're holding to guilt. My final conversation with my dad was a fight. And he calls me and he's like, we're talking about one of our companies. We get a container in the next day, and I was so frustrated that I literally I told him, let's play a fucking game. That was my words to him. Like, we were so heated. Let's play a fucking let's pretend X, Y, and Z. Like, don't you think I would know this? And that was our final conversation. And then my mom's final conversation with my dad, it was not a disagreement, but it was one of the things like, oh, you didn't even say bye to me. It's like, what do you mean I did say bye? And one thing I've realized is that, because I held that which you're just describing, that guilt, or like, man, I never called it back, or man, it was the last fight. I've come to some sort of terms with it, just because I tell myself that one of the big things I get, this one gets me. A long time ago in my life, I don't know where, I don't know how, I read or saw something that said about goosebumps. The goosebumps, when you get them, is that they're hugging you, that an angel is hugging you. So I get them all the time. And like, now that's how I look at goosebumps. Like, it's my dad, and my dad's just holding me. So I've had so many conversations with myself out loud. And then when I felt that I was getting the goosebumps, I would just like apologize and be like I didn't mean that. And what I've realized is that people like that, like your father, whatnot, they know, like, they know, like, you carry that guilt as a human because you're just like, fuck, like, I didn't get to call him back, or I was too busy. And now I tell people all the time, like, I would give everything up for 5 minutes, like everything. Like, I'd give it all up, just give me 5 more minutes. And it's like, you don't get that luxury. And I've, and I've had people like what you described. They're like, well, I had to pull the plug. I had my dad that really wasn't my dad for 3 weeks in a hospital. And then I tell myself, like, at the beginning, I was really selfish. I was like, I wish I had 3 weeks. I could have tried to get out stuff. But then it's just like, but then I'm seeing my dad wither away in a hospital, and I can't do anything. And he can't hear me, or he's squeezing my hand. I didn't have, like, so it's, none of them are good. Losing them slowly in a hospital, pulling a plug, or immediately losing them, or cancer, and it's coming. It fucking sucks. And suicide, like, there's no good way to lose somebody. And there's never enough time to lose somebody. And that was one of the things that I've tried to get better at time management, just forcing myself, like, you're going to die tomorrow. One day, if you tell yourself that every night, one day you're going to be right. Like, just look back and just make sure that, like, are you good? Because so many people like, oh, I'm great, I'm amazing. And like, I've got to just speaking with my friends, it's like, are you good? Like, are you really good? Because even at the happiest times of people's lives, you'd be surprised how many people are not. Like, you think from the outside, oh my God, this guy's in the Super Bowl, or they're getting married, or they just had their first baby. At the most important times of people's lives, you'd be surprised how many people are at such
not
a
good
downfall. It's just, and nobody checks up on them. And it sucks that I'm a man, and we're not normally the emotional type. Women are very in touch with their feelings. And as a man, you know how many times nobody checked up on me? Like, outside of prior to this, like, I know so many times as a kid I was suffering inside. So many. So as an adult, I try to change that. But it's like, man, again, grief is it's a fucking asshole, for lack of a better word.
It's just all about how you deal with it, how you deal with it after the fact, and finding the right tools to push through a situation, and realizing, well, just because someone else's life is over doesn't mean your life is over. And I feel like really bad when other people feel like their life is over because someone else left them. Like, this is a pivot point. and we're supposed to mourn. I don't know what the religion states. Like there's a mourning period where you're supposed to mourn and then give it to God. I don't know if it's Christianity or Catholicism that quotes that, like 3 days or 5 days. I don't like how long you sit for Shabbat. Like it's all of that. And so, but that doesn't change how it feels on the inside when you hear something, when you accidentally run into a leftover voicemail, like, when you run into stuff that you didn't. Yes.
It's not linear. It's not linear.
No.
And you might be okay. And then all of a sudden you're like, shit, I'm not okay. What happened? Like that's reality.
Listen, I'm thankful for voicemails because back in the day, like I have 200-300 voicemails on my dad, all saying the same thing, but I have 200-300 voicemails on my father. And
that's amazing.
Yeah, I'm thankful that it's saved, but it's like you say, it's not. Listen, there's no religion, there's no mentor, there's no spouse, there's no child. It's going to give you an answer that's going to make it go away. It's just like, you have a rock in your pocket. That grief is rock, right? The longer you hold that, because you're going to hold it for the rest of your life, the lighter it gets, but it's still there. You put your hand there, it's still there. You get stronger, it's still there. Like it's not going anywhere. And it's just like, you just got to learn how to live with it. And it sucks because the world keeps going. A week later, people forget. 2 weeks later, like nobody knows. On the first anniversary, some people around. On the second, a little bit less. 5 years later, God knows. Like, and you suffer. Like, that's where it's at. Like,
well, that was our kumbaya moment, people.
Yeah, but it's true, right? And I think this is going to help a lot of people who might be there swallowing, thinking, I should be over this by now, or I should feel this way or that way. Right. So I think that this is a really important conversation because there is no guidebook. There is no playbook. There is no step-by-step for any of this. And it's all individual to us for each situation.
Yeah. That's why it's not linear. It's kind of like a boxing match.
Linear.
Yeah. And imagine being in that boxing match and you can't throw the punches. So you just take them, but you're not going down. You refuse to quit. So you're standing there taking them from Mike Tyson because they hurt. But you can't punch back because you keep missing. So
sometimes you're winning and sometimes you're not.
Nah, you just take them on the chin and you just try and keep your feet.
Yeah, you just got to go all the rounds because once you go all the rounds, you get back to the other side and you realize, oh, I really can do this. I really can get through this. And you're stronger for the next time because everybody knows we have 2 sets of parents. So it's like, the fear of God it puts in you when you're like, oh, now I got to answer all my mom's phone calls and I got to call her every 5 minutes and I got to go on a trip with her because that PTSD effect really comes into play. Like, what's the last thing I said to her? Like, did I call her back? Like, it just automatically populates all the time. And then I can't imagine what it's like. Like, Kennedy was like, I watched her grow up, but I can't imagine what it's like to then lose a child because, we know we're going to lay our parents to rest at some point, but losing a child and laying a child to rest is like even more unimaginable for me because you miss the stuff that you are going to miss, like the sweet 16, like the wedding, the babies, like there's so many things that parents or that I've witnessed the comments on is just like, oh my gosh, like I never get to do this. I never get to see this. This is never going to happen for me. So I hope this portion of our show today was eye-opening for some people so that everybody knows like we are all going through this when it comes to grief. And like Misty said, the grief is different for everyone. It's not linear and it's going to knock you down, but just you can't let it knock you out.
Yeah, it's you're spot on, sure, and you don't know when it happens. It hits you on your it can hit you at any moment, and it's one of those situations you just got to keep your feet, and it's okay to not be okay. It's what I've literally told people, like it's okay to not be okay because you'd be surprised how many of us are not. And as long as you're still breathing, you still have a fighting shot. And again, like you said, we have 2 parents, and you play a video game. I always make it small, trivial for kids. I was like, just imagine playing a video game with 2 guys. You make some risk in that video game that when you're down to 1, you don't do. Same situation. And like you said with the child, I can't imagine a child. I lost my dog and I was distraught for a good amount of time. So it's gotta be rough. And there's a lot of people that right next to you right now that are suffering that you may never know unless you ask. And even if you do ask, they may never tell you.
Oh yeah. And then there's
That's it.
And then there's that. Misty, I'm sure you deal with a lot of that.
Yeah. Not everybody wants to open up. I think it takes a lot to create a space where people feel that they can trust the space enough that they are willing to peel back the onion and get to the layers of what things that they don't even want to talk to their inner circle about, because we're all walking around with ego, and that ego wants you to be safe, and we're proud, and we feel, all of us, men, women, even, we think it's men, but women too. Like, if we cry, all of a sudden we're weak and all these other things, right? So it's like all these things that you have to be like, finding that line between, I have to hold this down, I have to show up, I have to keep going, I have to stay in the fight, in the ring, no matter how many times I get punched. But then also, hey, I need help getting through this round. I need my corner, right? If we're going to keep using the boxing analogy, and being able to say to your corner, like, kind of fucked up right now, right? We all need like, and those are and it's all temporary. And that's what we kind of get like stuck in sometimes, is that we think, and I think people will continue to just bury things. But the reality is that once you find a place and somebody that you can confide in, it doesn't mean that you're going to be reliant on them, because that's another barrier, right? You think like, I should help myself and I should be independent. You're not relying on anybody, but you're asking for help, which is being independent, which is showing strength, which is having courage, all these things that we want, and we want people to think we are. And I think being those things and having that vulnerability, that's the most courageous you can possibly be.
Listen, I tell people I didn't open up till 30. I went 38 rounds without ever doing it. So like, I wish I knew it at 18. I wish, but at the same time, looking back, I think I needed to experience what I did. So if I can go back and undo anything outside of that one phone call in my life, I wouldn't undo anything I've gone through, because it made me get to where I'm at now. But yeah, like you said, 38 rounds, I went to my corner and didn't say a damn word. I stayed quiet. I was like, oh, I got this, when really I was dying inside. But yeah, it's rough, man. You suck. I always tell people, like, you think you only see the outside, the shiny stuff. Like, you know how many people suffer, like, and it happens to all ages, all sexes, all races, like, it doesn't matter. Like,
it doesn't matter. It
suffering,
doesn't matter.
No, doesn't give a shit what you look like. No. Suffering happens to all of us. This is the one universal truth. Like, we all suffer. It's just how you deal with it and how you work through it.
Failure is inevitable, but so are wins. Losses are inevitable, but so are, those comebacks. And I think the challenges, no one wants to hear this while they're going through challenges, but challenges are what allow us to grow. They show us the things that we're actually really capable of, because now we're pushed to push ourselves through those challenges in ways that we wouldn't have pushed ourselves had we not gone through those challenges. So there's a multitude of ways to work at it. It doesn't change the fact that it sucks. And it's okay to admit that. Like, okay, yes, I'm growing, and yes, this is leading me somewhere, and blah, 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 but it still sucks. And that's okay. And it's okay to say that to somebody, right? And say like, like, things are hard, and I'm going to get through it. This still really sucks.
You're right, man. Listen, I can count. I remember every failure. I can remember the failures more than the wins. The failures are the ones that broke. Like, what breaks you remember that. You don't remember like your 5th birthday when you're on top of the world. You remember when you didn't get the bicycle on your 7th Christmas that you begged for it. The failures is what I remember. And it's just like the scars is what I'm proud. I was embarrassed by scars for many years of my life. Now I brag about my scars. Like,
it's so wild that the marker for memory that retains the most recall, I would say, is a negative emotion. Like, because I know, like, I've started analyzing like how negative I can get sometimes, and I can go pretty low, especially since I'm premenopausal. So now my hormones are all over the place and blah 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 blah, whatever, right? But it's like that percentage of my life, it's really only like 5% of like the overall life. If you look back on like the lessons I learned from it, how beneficial it actually was. So now when I'm going through something, I start telling myself this one sentence. Like, my husband and I could be in like a knockdown, drag up blow, which are rare at this point in our relationship. But I remember sitting there going, don't fight back, don't retaliate, don't add any fuel to the fire, because once this is over, it's going to be a learning experience for both of us. And we're going to sit there and go, you know what, that needed to happen to us so that we learned X. And now we know how to apply this new technique in our toolbox. And the more I do that when I'm going through something negative, the quicker I seem to be going through it. I get that those emotional markers are still there, but really in the grand scheme of things, I have a pretty nice life. Like, I've been happy the majority of the time, But for some reason, we always go back to like our high school years. Well, when I was younger, this happened to me. So this is why I'm like that. I'm like, yeah, but why are we allowing that one moment in time to define who we are today? Like, at what point do you learn, adopt it, accept it, and move on? Because you're still allowing it to control your life. So I had to start talking to myself. And then a technique that Misty gave me that I was not doing was like, I do deep breath work in the morning before I even put my feet on the floor. But then I always put my hand in my heart and tell myself how much I love myself. And be like, because I'm like, I'm so busy telling everyone else all day, I love you, I love you, I love you. And then I realized when she said that to me in one of my therapy sessions, I was like, I've never said that to myself.
No one can take away the love you have for yourself. I want everyone to hear that, because a lot of times we're putting our happiness on external factors and people and things that we can't control. But when you learn to love yourself and accept yourself, even when things are really fucking hard and you don't even like the version of yourself that you're necessarily being.
Yeah, that part.
Love yourself.
Yeah.
Accept yourself.
No, it's amazing. It's amazing. That one technique helped me so much.
No, you're right on. The one thing I tell myself all the time is you got this. Like in the shittiest of moments, like you got this. Like,
yeah.
Even if I don't know how, like just don't worry about figuring out. Marcus, you got this. Like I have conversations like a crazy person with myself. You got this. You got this. And and somebody once told me like, in the dark forest you can't really see down because it's so dark. But can you look down and see the next step? Yeah. Okay. Cool. Then take another one of those. Before you know it, you'll look back and you won't even see where you started from. So it's just like one step at a time. You cannot see the distance.
I am not quote girl, but this is the one quote that I do know that Martin Luther King Jr. actually said was, you don't have to see the whole staircase, just take the first step. Yeah. And one of my favorite quotes. But I do want to transition to something a little happier before we close out the show today, because we're coming up on an hour shortly. And I want to ask, like, what's your next step? Like, what's the next thing for you? What's the
good question?
What are Souls by Sir? Where are they going to soul somebody next?
It's so crazy. So I have this ongoing list of like a bucket list, but my bucket list is crazy. And what I've realized, I've been a big dreamer in my life, and so I always apply that to everything, right? So my bucket list, like, there's been random stuff on my bucket. Oh, get a Super Bowl winner, did that year one. Oh, get another one year two. Go do this. Good, enter this part. So my bucket list is always changing because I'm crossing them out. I'm living a really blessed life. So now, like the most recent ones I put on that list, and they're outlandish, and I will warn you ahead of time because the stuff that like
we're ready.
Own a unicorn. What is it?
Nuts. So like some of the recent ones
we're putting it out now into the universe. By the way, this is how we put it out there.
Yeah. So I have like 3 that I could think of. One is to do a huge collaboration with something outside of shoes and women wise, because I feel like
bags. Yeah,
that's
bags.
what in my head there's like 3 or 4 brands that I want to work with.
I want a custom mental health.
You can go into
from you.
Imagine being able to go into like a Louis store, a Chanel store, whatever store, and all of a sudden my name ends up being like, oh, this is a line that he did.
Like the collab. Yes.
And they've done it before. Like
yes, they do it all the time. There's always right now. It's Murakami is the collab with Louis right now. Yeah.
One of the ones like that. So whether it be a purse, the other one was American Express. So like there's 2 artists that have had their work on the platinum and black cards.
Kahindi Wiley.
Yeah, like there's 2, and I'm just like, why not me? Why not me has been it. One of the other crazy ones that I'm really trying to work on, which this one was wild. So recently I did a collab with Lululemon, and we've done a whole bunch of great stuff. I love the brands. It's amazing. They're amazing people. So Lululemon's a Canadian brand. I know. I'm guilty. I used to make fun of people that would spend $60, $70, $80 on a t-shirt and $100 for leggings.
Yeah, $108.
Yeah, exactly. Well, I recently convinced my mom to go, and they had a private shopping experience. The woman doesn't wear anything outside of Lululemon now. Like, and
none of us do. Nice.
Once you jump, you're stuck. So
once you put them on, you don't want to wear anything else because your beauty is fabulous.
Yes, she's like, my body feels great, and I feel like I'm almost naked because it like the way it grabs my skin. So they are a Canadian company, right? And they like Ralph Lauren does the Olympic clothing for the U.S. team. Lululemon does the Canadian. So I've recently tried to push and crawl and get my way into a room where I could basically see like opening ceremonies. I want to be able to have my shoes on the whole Team Canada. So when they walk out and they do the opening ceremony, I want them all to be wearing custom one-of-one country inspired, but something about them on the shoe just to like look back and like, holy shit, like look at that. Like that's all me. That's
I know what shoe you could design for them. Hell no, we won't go.
Oh my God.
that's one of my. So that's on there. I've always had a president on there.
We are not. Canada is not going to be absorbed into the United States.
No,
I'm
no, and
Canadian,
funny-
by the way, so I'm a little bit of on
Oh,
a
yeah.
soapbox. But what's funny is we actually are partnered with Lululemon Kennedy Kids Foundation. So
Okay.
Christina Ramirez.
Christina is the best human in the world.
So talk to Christina and see if
I
she
have-
would make the intro for you
I
to
have-
the Canadian.
yeah.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Just
Christina's the one that got
trying
me
to-
on board. I had two
trying to
people
get
like.
it. Okay.
No, Christina, and I love that woman, and I've never heard anybody talk about it. Christina Ramirez is amazing. Her husband's amazing, and her whole team of people amazing.
The Lululemon 5K right now is being we're the recipient of the funds for their 5K that's coming up shortly. So I think registration opened on the 30th, maybe. I'm not sure about the dates, but it's this week. The early registration opens, and then so for their 10K, this 10K, it's a 10K, I think. She's
Are
a
you right?
runner. I'm not. Oh no, I'm not. This is me.
Wait a second. So you drink the Kool-Aid, and you make the Kool-Aid, but you're not going to drink the Kool-Aid?
What do you mean, make the Kool-Aid? Why do I gotta run?
You don't have to. You have the privilege of being able to run for all those kids that you're here talking about.
I'm
here we go.
sitting here volunteering my life 40 hours a week for the last 2 years to
Okay.
make this foundation run and generate money. I don't also have to run.
I'm going to tell you something in front of whoever's watching this. Listen. I don't run. I walk most of my day. So when is this? This 5K, 10K?
I'll have to look, but it's the
gonna-
Lululemon
let
one.
me
It's on
pull it
their
up.
site. See if you can pull it up. But our 5K is September the 14th. And I'm the MC, but I'm also the person that was there at 4 a.m. setting it up and then like getting all the people together and the runners and the registration table. So then you want me to walk too? Like
I
man, that's a
do. I
lot.
do because I was about
That's
to
a
tell
lot.
you and challenge you that if you do it, I'll do it with you, and we will do it in custom shoes. That's what I was going to tell you, but
Oh,
You're quick
now
to
there's
think-
the incentive package right
Always.
there. So I
You
can't
have
turn
to put a
down
carrot
the,
sometime.
yeah, I can't turn
saying, like,
down.
it'd be-
But do you have time to make me a custom pair of shoes
I
to
will.
walk with you?
I will.
Okay,
Well, I'm not trying to stress you out though.
10K on May 18th, 2025.
May
Okay,
18th
May
is it?
18th.
Okay,
So
May
May
18th,
Is
2025.
it a 5K, Misty, or is it?
10K.
I think it's a 10K.
10K.
Yeah.
I am willing to run it with you.
Yeah,
If
walk
you do
run
it. Then we'll run it. We'll run. If you want to do it, and we'll do custom shoes. 100%.
Man, no one's ever called me out like this on a thing, but
I know. I've never
Okay.
called anybody like this either. But you know what? Like, I'm doing it for both our health, mental and physical. So
fine.
if you do it, I'll do it.
Okay, fine.
Christina, wherever you're at, this is your fault.
Yes, 100%, and my fault for opening my big ass mouth.
No, you'll feel so good about it. I tell myself that when I take off running. I'm sure we'll feel good about it when we're done.
At the end, I'm going to be lying on the floor, like breathing heavy. And I'm like, listen, I'm going to have to start walking on a regular basis to train just to walk a 10K. Like, how many miles is that, Misty?
6.2.
7? Yeah, there you go.
Okay.
It's okay. After the
Gonna-
cursing, we're going to curse each other out. It'll feel good. We'll get the cursing out of the way. Like, I
Yeah.
can't believe you made me
All
do
right.
this.
All right. I can't
All right,
believe
done.
you called
It's
me
a
out.
deal. That's it.
Okay.
Misty,
done.
feel free to
Ah.
join too. Like, don't let us be
This is a
miserable.
First for yeah, I'm in it. Let's do
Here we
it.
go. We're doing it.
I gotta go to one of your events anyway and paint some custom shoes for myself. one
You
of these
guys should.
days.
Like, I
So,
think that's another thing that I've realized I've been able to offer that, and people take so amazing. I do a class like one time a month where I basically people buy tickets, they come in, and I teach them the whole process. So it's almost, but it's like
that would be a
open-
cool fundraising event.
yeah, like, and there's
Just
like
to have people
you have
come
a
in
cool
and
charcuterie bar with board, which I make it with healthy, not so healthy snacks. There's an open bar.
healthy, not
so,
so healthy.
yeah,
It's not.
it's not the like. So I always thought charcuterie boards were like, oh, they're so like fancy. So I was like, you know what? If I'm gonna do this, I'm doing it my way. So my charcuterie board brings everything from like popcorn chicken to Twizzlers to Hershey Kisses to strawberries to salami. Like it's just crap that I eat. Sour worms, a whole bunch of stuff.
I eat that.
But like what I realized in that class, people kind of lose themselves, and 4 hours flies by, and I'm able to like walk them through this process and like the feeling. And I always tell people, like, oh my God, I love what I did. Especially people that say that they don't know how to paint. Those are my favorites because when they leave, they're so impressed by what they could actually do if they just put your hands up. I'll help you. And then the best feeling of that is when you leave my class and you wear the shoes for the first time, and the first person tells you, oh my God, I love those. Where did you get them? And that feeling that
Amazing.
you're going to feel like, oh, I made them. And I tell people that what you're about to feel is what I feel every day of my life.
I love this. I think we should really offline is look at when we could collab on a fundraising event where we could have a class of people. I don't know how you do it, but I'm assuming that people bring their own shoes to paint.
Yep.
Okay. So that's how I would do it. I'm an event planner, so that's how I would do it. But bring their own shoes to paint in their own sizes. And then we could do a fundraiser where they pay and we sell tickets to work with you on their own set of soles. And we can brand it something in line with the mental health and Kennedy kids. I think that would be phenomenal. Like that'd be such an amazing thing to do. Thank you.
So Marcus, so people, if they're listening to this, I know that this is going to post after your next one in January, but when we're recording, so where can people follow you so that they can get more information on these classes and absolutely everything else that you're doing, and follow your journey and maybe slide in those DMs if they need a little extra support?
Listen, they're up there. So if anybody's listening,
they're sliding in the DMs.
Yeah, not that.
Like, I'm not doing okay.
No, but all those stories
awesome.
Best,
I'm so excited.
Yeah.
On the social media I'm about to give you, you'll see on my highlights, every single one of those things is there, and there's some already, and so it's up there. But my social media is Soles by Sir, but like a sneaker. So it's SOLESBYSIR, and then the class, which you can either find on the bio there, or the class is Kicking It with Sir. Kicking It with Sir.
That's
so
cool.
That's basically where you can find me. All the stuff's in there. You need a custom project, you send me a DM.
No, love that. So before we wrap up, I know you've shared 2 of the things that you use to improve your mental health and positively, but what would be one more thing that you share? You walk with no sound on.
So one more thing for my mental health, it's like I'm blessed because I get to do it every day, but I always tell people, like, find something you love. I don't care what it is. Painting, running, find something that you love to do. Reading, writing, and like immerse yourself in that, and podcast, whatever it may be. And like when you get into that zone, the 10 minutes you're going to give it, the hour, the 30 minutes, whatever the case, just get in that zone. And like, it doesn't have to be even something what I would call productive, where you can count how many more you've done. Like, listen, if one of the things you love to do is meditate, cool, for 30 minutes. Like you can't not justify, but you can't keep scoring meditation. But like, if those 30 minutes are what it is for you, for me, it's painting. It just so happens to be my job. But like, if it wasn't painting, to me, it would probably be something sports related. I love going to sporting events. That was how me and my family, my whole life, disconnected. We've had seeing tickets to the Heat, Dolphins, Hurricanes. Well, how do we disconnect from the world and the stresses of being an entrepreneur? Go watch a sporting event.
Yep.
Or it's like the other one I used to love was watching a movie. Like, because when you go watch a movie for 2 hours, the world stops.
Yeah.
You're entertained as to why
your phone's off.
Yeah. Why? Yeah. So one time in my life, I rarely pick up the phone. Why this person cheated? Why they killed this one? Who killed so and so? Yeah. So like, those are things to me, like sporting events, movies. But to me, whatever's your thing, just do it by yourself too. Because I've done all those things solo. I've gone to movie theaters by myself. I've gone to football games by myself. You'd be surprised. Like, you just immerse yourself in whatever makes you happy. For me, it's painting. I do it every day. But sporting events and movies are up there for me, and just go and just disappear from everything outside of that thing.
Well, I love that. Thank you so much for joining us today, Marcus. This was an amazing call. So many revelations and a few tears, but we are who we are. We're all humans. And if you know anybody that is in crisis, have them dial 988, text the Suicide Crisis Hotline, and then 911 if it is an emergency, of course. And then, Marcus, you're welcome to share our kennedykids.org page, which has mental health resources on it. So if there's anyone that you are assisting in your DMs and they need to know where else they can go or whatever else they can look up, it is listed on our website there, and we'll be happy to assist as well. So thank you for joining us today. Great show, guys.
Thank you for having me. I appreciate you.
Living my best life like it's supposed to be. Wake up feeling good, even looking better.